Hi.
Morning. Christina?
Yeah. Nevada. Come on.
Yeah, so this part goes inside of your vagina and this part goes on top of the clit.
Is it like the body contact, maybe the smell?
So I'm not gonna be dreaming again.
Mama's a good lover.
You have to like be more aware.
Bitch.
You said it all, darling.
Crazy.
I'm gonna make it anyway.
I don't know.
I mean, fuck this guy, really. Good morning. Or actually, question of the day. Is it still morning if it's past 11? I'm having my third coffee out here on the balcony. Not ideal, considering the fact that I'm just waiting around. Believe me, I'm more than ready for having this call with Mark. And not just because the coffee got my tongue loose. I want to talk to him. There are open discussions here. I just can't quite place you. Can't you see you're not looking for love? You're looking for drama? That was his last text to me 2 days ago, and it kind of hit me. There are so many things I want to say to this. But to talk to him, one has to wait. Technically, so ChatGPT says, at 12 morning changes into lunchtime. So to find out whether Mark this time will keep his word, we have 1 more hour to kill. I reckon just enough time to get you up to date. So let's travel back to a sunny Sunday 1 month ago. Berlin, June 2024. Start of the summer. Prime time in the German capital. After months on end without the sun inside, once she's back, everyone is crawling out of their hideaways, celebrating survival. You won't get a better Berlin mood all year. Finally, you meet people in parks, the terrace at La Maison becomes the spot to be seen again, and in Berghain, it's suddenly all about who's playing in the garden. But most of all, people are finally smiling again, and so was I. I had paid off all the debt that Vienna had brought my way. I had quit my job at a production company to go back into freelancing. I was rid of all heartache and any unsatisfying dating stories. My rebuilding phase was complete. I was free. And on to new projects. One of them was a film I wanted to make in Austria. But to do that, I needed a contact to a production company in Vienna. And there was only one person that I knew that had one. Mark. So, should I ask him? I hesitated at first. I knew contacting him would mean waiting for an answer, most likely for days. Not my favorite situation to be in. But also, I didn't have much to lose this time. So, fuck it. 2nd of June 2024. End of silence. Hey Mark, how are you? I texted, opting for a slow start. I went out to my balcony and lit a cigarette. His reply, I was already prepared, could take a while. I just grabbed my phone when a notification came up. Hey Christina, nice to hear from you. What? A 2 minutes reply? Who am I talking to here? It used to take 2 days, not 2 minutes. Are you still in Vienna? He asked. I'm back in Berlin. We missed each other in Vienna. But no stress. In retrospective, it was, let's say, a very special time in my life. Understand, same here, he replied. We had both gotten over it. I didn't have any bitter feelings towards him anymore. There were too many other stories in between that were claiming those. I went on to ask him about the favor I was looking for. He proposed to chat on the phone. So at 9 p.m. this evening in June, he was calling. Listening to his voice took me back to long forgotten times. Anytime I could hear him laugh, I saw his big smile in front of me. But the phone doesn't transfer sparks, so I didn't fall for him straight away again. I was keeping it professional. We exchanged about the film I was working on. We talked about the projects he was into. It was great conversation, as always. In the end, we were on the phone for 3 hours. Around midnight, I called it a day. I was adamant I didn't want to bring up the past, and I had made it that far. I'm gonna send you the contact, he said. Thanks, good night. Kisses, he replied. That night, I went into dreamland, his voice still ringing in my ears. A week from Mark and my phone call, I was spending my Sunday the Berlin way. Flea market time. My sister is the queen of selling the spare clothes that frequently flood her wardrobe. #shopping therapy. I'm not meaning to shade her. I'm guilty of that too, but I tend more to buy toiletry products. Flea markets are her department. I was chilling in her stall, smoking a joint, while watching her explain about the different items of clothing she had on sale. Her strategy is usually telling people exactly what materials the pieces are made of. This is tencel fabric, super nice on the skin. Tell me you're a fashion designer without telling me you're a fashion designer. It worked well for her. She successfully neutralized her shopping therapy with selling therapy. After I finished my coffee, I decided to walk around a bit. I had a wedding in Spain coming up, and I still didn't have all of my outfits. The party night had a floral theme, and the first time in my life I was truthfully able to say, I don't have anything to wear. Yet, I figured a simple accessory could change that. I was trying on some heart-shaped glasses. Yes, I know, not very floral, but don't judge me, I was stoned. When suddenly my phone vibrated. Mark was texting. Maybe this is a bit out of the blue, but I think I need to get away from Vienna for a bit before the shoot starts. Do you feel like going on a trip with me? Was it the heart-shaped glasses that made me feel like this? Or was it the dream of Mark that had suddenly returned? I felt a flash of dopamine coming over me. A holiday with Mark, the king of creating enchanting time capsules. Bilbao next Monday? If you want to be my wedding after party. It was perfect timing. In less than 20 minutes, he had booked his flight. Do you want me to repeat this? The man that usually took 2 days to reply to a "How are you?" booked a flight to see me within 20 minutes. Who says things never change? When I returned to my sister with the heart-shaped glasses still on my head, I only remembered later to pay for them, it was all set up. In a week's time, Mark and I would be in Spain together. I smiled at her, but she refrained from the mirroring game. What? You want to do the same again? Why are you doing that? She was not amused, but powerless against the sparks in my eyes. I don't see why not. It's different. I'm not depending on him making me feel good anymore. Even if it goes wrong, I'll be fine. 2022 had taught me something. No matter how deep you fall, misery is not forever. I was confident that I could handle this. And the truth was, all this time that Mark and I had been silent, I had not met anyone that I enjoyed talking to more than him. I knew if there was any chance of me and him being together, I had to take it. 1.5 years have passed. Things are not the same. I am not the same. My sister refrained from replying, at least verbally. Her look, though, expressed 1,000 words. I could see she was scared for me. And maybe also for herself. After all, ever since I met Mark, she was the one that had to listen to hours of me stating how hurt I was. But we both didn't want to go the same route again. Don't worry, I appeased her. The past is not the future. The future was bright this Sunday, and it was only gonna get sunnier. A few days later, I was sitting on a plane to Bilbao. My friend was getting married in the Basque country. She had invited all her bitches from around the world to celebrate with her. We were gonna spend 3 nights in a villa overlooking a village close to Bilbao. When we drove up the hill after our dinner reservation, we found a huge moon decorating the sky. It was summer solstice coinciding with the supermoon. The planets seemed to be celebrating a high too. The energy was electric. I don't know if it was the moon, the huge steak I'd eaten at dinner, or the snoring in our room. But I couldn't sleep and sat out on the terrace all night watching the sky. In the distance, waves were rolling in from the Atlantic. Everything was quiet. A moment of calmness before the storm. In 2 days, I would be with Mark again. What would it feel like? Would the sparks in his eyes catch me again? Would I be all loved up in an instant? My thoughts of him weren't all rosy. I clearly remembered the hours I had spent waiting for his calls. The times my messages were left unanswered. The hurt that dropping from his priority list had caused me. And there were still question marks in my head. What made him be so distant when I was back in Berlin? But more than anything else, there was still this big longing in my chest. The longing to be on his side, for him to be on mine. When I woke up the next day, having slept around 3 hours, I was already late for everything. The rest of the wedding guests were about to arrive. I grabbed my toiletry bag and hurried into the shower. After drying my hair, ironing my clothes, and putting on a lot of concealer, we were all sitting on white chairs on the lawn. Over us, a huge blow-up dome was blending into the sky. Slightly lit in pink, it made the scenery look out of this world. My friend, the bride, stepped out of the villa wearing a magenta gown. She never believed in being traditional. That bitch is extra. Hand in hand with her husband, she walked down the pink carpet. They stopped right in front of us and soon were speaking their vows. Getting married might be out of fashion these days, but watching her commit to a life with the man in the pink suit sparked all the romantic thoughts inside of me. It's the wedding effect, I guess. Getting married is a binding union. You promise someone priority, trust and loyalty, love and care. No matter what, you say, I'll always be with you. There is power there. Sure, you won't always sail on the bright side, but you will never be alone with it. If I was cynical, I would say, so the romantic story goes. But I don't always choose to be. Together with all the wedding guests, I chose celebrating. We partied 2 nights. Sunday was adults only day. A band was playing some salsa until the DJ took over to bring in some Berlin vibes. The dance floor was happening, the gay bitches were half naked, and there was also some candy on offer. The drummer of the band had taken over another shift after the salsa finished. He had the drugs, and I went to talk to him several times this night. He was fun, a free spirit traveling the world with his instruments. He had arrived with his van. Wanna check it out? He had already made several attempts to dance with me. All of them I declined, misunderstandingly politely, I now realized. He seemed adamant to be interested in a bit more than racking up a line for me. But right now, no coke in the world would have me gotten horny enough to sleep with him. Note to myself, my heart is stronger than my pussy. All I wanted was to be with Mark. And it was only hours until our meeting. I'm gonna check out what the bride is doing. Bye, Spanish almost lover. Back to sexy bride on the dance floor. Around 6 a.m., the music stopped. I sat on the sofa for a bit longer until I finally made my way to bed. I urgently needed some rest, but once I had put the covers over me, I realized sleeping was not an option. I had visited the drummer too many times. I was rolling from one side to the other when the pink bride opened the door to the room. Christina, are you awake? Do you think you can help tidying? We have to be out by 12 today. It was actually a relief to get up from the bed that had given me so little sleep over the last 2 days. I walked to the kitchen where people were already washing dishes. Okay, I need instructions. I haven't slept. I can help, but I can't think. We were cleaning dishes for the next hours until it was finally time to pack up. I felt terrible, but at the same time amazing. The clock was ticking. In a few hours, I would finally see Mark again. So are you excited? My friend asked me. We laughed for a while, following that question. My face was communicating everything else but that. I was missing 2 nights of sleep by now. Excitement was not in my repertoire anymore. I'm looking forward. But do you think he might be it? Yes, I think he could be, I replied. Just stay flexible, see how he acts. Don't fall in too deep too quick. I assured her that I was open to all outcomes. Mark and I hadn't seen each other in 1.5 years. We hadn't talked about what happened after we first met, how we both felt, and apart from the fact that we had arranged to stay in one bed together, Nothing was ensuring a romantic meeting. Maybe we wouldn't even kiss. Maybe we would just hang out. Everything was possible at this point. It was midday when we left the villa. My diva friend and I were gonna catch a bus back to Bilbao. We were in separate cars, driven by our friends that had made it to bed earlier than us. I was with my last bit of energy, trying to direct the way towards the bus stop. But it seemed to be an impossible riddle to solve. We made 3 rounds through the little town until finally someone directed us the right way. On the bus, I could finally catch some sleep. Arriving fresh to meet Mark was not really a possibility anymore, but at least I didn't want to arrive sleepwalking. I was just getting comfortable on the seats when the bus driver came to check our tickets. And so we encountered the next problem. Guess what happens when you organize travel without having slept? Our tickets were booked for the wrong day. We had to get off at the next stop, San Sebastian. From the sound of it, there's worse places in the world you could end up stranded. But don't be fooled. Spain has these weird bus stations. Getting off, we were underground in some kind of garage that smelled of wasted gas and was full of people carrying terrible-looking backpacks. I stood there still wearing wedding gear. I just wanted to be with Mark. Why is life making it so difficult? An hour late, we finally arrived in Bilbao. This time, it was Mark waiting. Maybe the universe is just balancing out the score between us, I thought. Then I jumped on a taxi. I was falling asleep in the back seat while the driver took me towards the historic town center. All of a sudden, he stopped. With the little Spanish I had, I understood that the car couldn't drive any further. The address was in a pedestrian zone. I had to get out of the car with all my luggage and watch the taxi leave. I had no idea which direction I had to walk towards. The driver had tried to tell me, but I didn't really understand. And in my condition, I forgot everything immediately. So, Google Maps, can you help me? Just when I was typing the address, my phone screen all of a sudden blacked out on me. No more battery. My phone felt like my body. The world just seemed to be against me meeting Mark. I must have looked like the most miserable person in the world, standing next to my luggage, my gaze lost in the distance. A woman came up to me. "Basque Suite?" she asked. It was her that directed me down the street to another woman that was already waiting for me. I had only been steps away. And now I finally made it. I immediately loved the suite I was now stepping into. An open kitchen aisle with a round table on the side. A huge bed making up the heart space of the room. Next to it, a French-style balcony that was looking out over the historic core of the city. Once my phone was back on charge, I messaged Mark, and a few minutes later, the bell of the apartment rang. I stepped out of the balcony and looked down towards the door. There he was with his suitcase. The tall man with the sparkly eyes that had ruled so many of my thoughts ever since we met. Now he was smiling up to me. Even though my system had been on survival mode all this time, shutting out all emotions, my chest was now pulsating with my heartbeat. He had finally returned from the rain. Knowing that there was no chance I would work the intercom, I grabbed the key and went downstairs. When I opened the door and stepped outside, I I aimed for a hug, but Mark immediately pulled me towards him. His hand on my neck, he kissed me. It was overwhelming. After not having seen each other for 1.5 years, we were now again melting into each other. The answer to whether this was gonna be a romantic meeting or not, we had given it to each other immediately. We were in bed, naked, a few minutes after we entered. We already knew how we worked. My hormone high was doing the rest. I put some pillows on the tiny floor space of our French balcony and threw a blanket over the rail. We were now sitting opposite each other, leaning to the walls while touching each other's legs affectionately. We could hear tourists walking past downstairs, but no one could see us. You know what's the only thing on my list now? I want to tell you how I felt after we first met. Yeah, that's what we're here for, right? Mark replied. Well, that hadn't been clear to me, but I was relieved that he was prepared. Okay, where should I start? I felt my brain cells revolting against me. I had tortured them with no sleep and mind-altering substances the past days. Finding words seemed as difficult as finding the bus stop hours earlier. Maybe you want to start? Sure, Mark replied. For me, meeting you was really intense. And in that time, I was so lost. I didn't know how to handle my own life in general. I was just living from one day to the other. In the end, it was just too powerful for me. Too powerful. So he felt it too. I was not the only one lost in a cocktail of emotions after our time in Vienna. This had tortured me all this time. The thought that he had actually never felt the same. The thought that while I had been drinking a raspberry romance martini, he had simply ordered a sex on the beach and finished it once I left. At times, it seemed that he had never thought of me as more than just a random girl he had sex with. But now he said it. Our connection was powerful to him too. Too powerful. And where in your life are you now? I asked. I think I have more of an idea of how life can work out for me. I'm not so lost anymore. I looked deep into his eyes, my gaze fixed on him. He held it with a warm and honest look. I felt it. He wanted to connect. That's what he had come here for. I had lost all my words, but I felt my chest opening. All the sparks that he threw at me, they hit. He grabbed my hand, and we stared into each other's eyes for what felt like an eternity. That night, I fell asleep on his chest. I had finally passed out in his arms, covered by his love. All this time, I had wished to have his affection again. Now he was holding me like his treasure, so powerful it had taken him 1.5 years to embrace it. No dream feels better than one that's just being fulfilled. This was my happy end. It was sunny and warm the next day. This part of Spain, the west coast, can be unpredictable with weather. It had been raining on the wedding day, but this morning the sky was spotless. After spending the morning in bed, Mark went out to get some food. He prepared an aesthetically arranged brunch plate for us. So Austrian. We had traditionally all been told that no matter what you eat, before you eat it, you make it look nice. Not everyone gets that education. You see this at birthdays often. For some people, it would be totally fine putting out a buffet consisting of a collection of Tupperware boxes and cheese still to be taken out of its original packaging. Mark had rolled up the ham into little tubes, put the cheese into a fitting order on the plate, decorating it with olives and half tomatoes. He was putting in his Austrian effort. I saw it, and I loved it. And he kept up his game all day. After another short bed break, he directed us towards the beach. I was following him through the tunnels of the underground, always holding his hand. It doesn't happen often that I give up on my own lead and just follow. But with him, it felt good. Once on the train, he pulled me towards him and held his hands around my hips. You know, every time I saw a couple in Berlin doing what we're doing now, I so wanted to be them. It's a really nice story, us meeting in Bilbao, right? It could be a good story for your podcast, actually. I looked up. So he listened to it. I really don't want this to be a podcast story. Why? He asked. Because they all end. He looked away when I searched for his eyes. He didn't add any more. A little later, we got off and walked down a sidewalk leading to the beach. We were not the only ones going down that road. We got stuck in the middle of two school classes that were shouting around, being young and loud. When passing a bench on the way, we decided to sit down and let them pass. There was no rush. All we really wanted was to be together. Whether it was on a bench next to a road or on the beach, it was irrelevant. We were each other's plan. No extras needed. I love your looks, I said, staring at him, holding his hand around me. I love yours too, he replied. It was all so harmonious, so equal. We liked each other the same. Once on the beach, we put our towels down on the sand. Cuddled up in the midst of naked asses and trained beach bodies, we stayed untouched by any other appeal but our own. We were only looking at each other. Our world ended on the edges of our towels. I felt so complete here. There was nothing I needed to do, nowhere I needed to be. I was just where I wanted to be, with him. I grabbed my phone and took a picture of us. This moment, at least on my phone, it should last forever. You know what I'm afraid of? I now said, looking back at the photo. That you'll just be gone again. I sat up and fixed him with my eyes. I can't promise you that I will always be available. Sometimes I go on a shoot and all my capacities are taken by that. He stopped for a bit. I looked at him. But otherwise, I would be an asshole not to talk to you. It wasn't the answer of my dreams, but it felt honest. He wasn't promising me a perfect world. He was just explaining his own. I never asked for more. I always wanted to understand him. The more I understand, the more I trust, and the less confirmation I need. I'm also not the person that wants to be on the phone texting all day either. I drop into projects and enjoy taking my time away from usual life too. I can handle that. We went back to our suite a little later to spend some more intimate time together. Fitting physicality is a treat. My hormone high wanted as much as possible of that. But despite being so in love with Mark, I felt the trust still brittle. I just couldn't give it up to him. Orgasms were out of reach for me. Yet, in the end, I don't have sex to have an orgasm. I have sex to be in that situation. And I love being there with Mark. I was on top of him while the doors of the French balcony were wide open. Everyone from the building close by could have seen us, but that didn't matter. I just did what I felt like, in my own rhythm. I love how you have sex, he said afterwards. I appreciated the compliment. I spent a lot of time in my life figuring out what good sex is for me. I'm glad he realized and enjoyed. That night, we laid in bed together with the most possible body contact there could have been. My oxytocin levels were overflowing. But another day was almost over. I remember this feeling of not wanting to fall asleep. I didn't want to be gone from here again. I didn't want to wake up and know that we have to say goodbye again. Fuck sleeping. We talked for much longer while in each other's arms. It's so much nicer to take a trip somewhere than just to get wasted all the time, Mark now said. Yes, I agree. And I've also been told that the secret to living in Berlin is to leave Berlin often enough. I'm up for traveling. You know what could also be nice? Friends of mine did that recently. They went around with their van and their baby, traveling the coastlines. Really? But with a child that must be complicated. What if they're ill? Where's the next doctor when you're in the middle of nowhere? Yeah, I don't know. I always find it funny when men just imagine an easy, chill time with babies. I'm not a mom, but I spend a lot of time being an aunt, and it's crazy what it means if you want to do the best for your child. Most of all, it means never-ending effort, ultimate commitment. Funny that Mark was interested in that, I thought. But with me, he was barking up the wrong tree. This idea did not fill my dreams that night. The next morning, I woke up early. Mark was still sleeping. I threw on some clothes and went down to get some coffee. It was hard to find a place open. The tourist day hadn't started yet, and I was planning to go back to bed too. When I returned to the flat with the coffee in hand, Mark had already gotten up. We kissed and sat down behind the blanket that was covering the railing of the French balcony. It was my favorite spot in the whole apartment. It felt like we were in the middle of the action, yet hidden, in our own world, in our own time. But this morning, Mark's time was limited. He was nervous. While drinking the coffee, he kept getting up to check something. He had told me that he wanted to leave to the airport around 11. At 10, he closed his suitcase and walked up to me. I think I better leave now. Really? But you said at 11, no? Do you want to have sex again or what? No, it's fine. I felt a bit like shamed. Was I the only one that wanted to have sex? Did I overstretch his sexual energy? I mean, on my hormone high, that could happen. And I mean, he's not 25 anymore. Never mind. Mark now took me into his arms and hugged me, pulling my body close to his. It was not the time for big words. I didn't want to say anything. We kissed until he finally opened the door of the apartment. When he was about to step out, he turned around and looked back at me. I was standing there, completely out of control of my facial expression. It was the moment that I feared so much. Him leaving. I don't know what I looked like, but it made Mark turn around. He came back to me and grabbed me firmly. Bye, Christina. I stood there, now watching the door close for real. I had a huge knot in my throat when I sat back down on the French balcony. The speaker that was playing music from Mark's phone was now starting to stutter. One beat on, one beat off. Until finally, no more music was coming out of it. Mark was out of reach. I heard the door opening downstairs. Soon the rolls of a suitcase were sounding up to the balcony. It must have been Mark pulling his luggage over the stone floor. Now the noise stopped. I knew he was looking up to the balcony that I was sitting on, but I was hiding behind a blanket that had made our world one out of the gaze of others. Now he was one of the outsiders too. I couldn't get myself to get up and look down, waving him goodbye. I just couldn't see him leave again. A few hours later, I was on the airport too. My drama friend and I were gonna take the same plane back to Berlin. We sat down in the waiting area when we realized that the screen showing the departures was all covered in red. Our flight was cancelled. I got slightly nervous. I had a shoot scheduled in Berlin the day after, and I needed to arrive on time. My friend had less stress. He went on to call his new lover. I hadn't been the only one staying in sexy company.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I book my flight and I come.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Oh my god.
I'm staying in Bilbao.
Another one leaving. I watched him drive off a little later. After 3 hours of waiting, I was finally in the air. The plane I was now sitting on was going to Munich. Whether I was gonna make it all the way to Berlin that night, I didn't know yet. Only hours later, I had cancelled my shoot and checked into a hotel close to Munich airport. I sent Mark a picture of me in bed. I'm already cold without you. Ah, so you didn't make it home yet? I probably won't either. 2 of my friends are celebrating their birthdays. He was going straight to the Blue Loft, while I wasn't going anywhere. In total, it took me over 24 hours to get back to Berlin. Once I arrived, I really needed a drink. I went out to meet my friend who I was supposed to work with today. So you're moving to Vienna? No, I replied. I went on to tell him all about my last days. Of me falling asleep on Mark's chest, him saying our connection had been too powerful, us cuddling up on the beach. I flooded him with romanticism, but my account ended in a notion that surprised me. I communicated all my doubts. I felt so far away from Mark again. After his "I'm going to party," I hadn't heard from him. It again felt like he had checked out. The distance between text and reply that had become minutes before meeting in Bilbao had become hours again. Hours that after meeting my friend, I spent waiting on my balcony. Just like I'm doing now, having told you all these stories in my waiting time. Here we are again. 1 week after Bilbao, 2 days after he wanted to call. And again, he hasn't. It's past 12. On WhatsApp, I can see he's online, but he doesn't ring. nor does he text. At least not me. I'm none of his priorities again. And I can't believe it. So quick, all of this again. Really? Really? After we had this amazing time together? His shoot hasn't even started yet. He said he would be an asshole not to be there. I can't believe it. I waited for 2 days to talk to him now. I'm done. I want to end this. And the only way to end it is to face it. Spoiler. My friend intermediating would not be proud of me right now. So I guess we've reached the point where I can call you an asshole now. That's what you said. I could call you an asshole if again you wouldn't talk to me. What the hell are you thinking? You think you can spend the most intimate time with me, I fall asleep on your chest, and then, a week later, I can't reach you anymore? You run away from me? Again? You do it all over again? Why? In the end, you're what you wanted to be. Another podcast story. One of the painful ones. I guess I could have known. In my contacts, you're still called Mark Blue Loft. And I guess you'll stay that forever. You'll always return to there, freezing up your feelings in this blue loft. In case you're wondering whether I hate you now, I do. Until I finally don't give a shit about you anymore, I'll hate you. Don't ever dare to text me again. It's unbelievable. To me, at least. My sister had said it as soon as she heard about my plans to meet him in Bilbao. He's just gonna do the same thing again. But that was the very thing that made me think it would be different this time. He already knew that non-communication would break our bond, and he was the one that had set out to renew it. There was no room for misunderstanding. He could repeat his ways, blaming it on, "Oh, I didn't know you needed someone that texts back quicker." He knew exactly. He had changed his behavior leading up to our meeting, and now he just does the same thing all over again. Okay, and for the sake of justice, so did I. Me too. I went down the rabbit hole again. I went too deep, too quickly. Expecting something different while behaving the same. Again, I'm having to come to terms with being left behind. After feeling all of this intensity, feeling like I was loved, but finding out I was used. That's how I feel. I feel used. I feel like he used me as a tryout of one of his fictional scripts. Selling a dream that never lasts longer than the trailer. He is the endless trailer. Promising a happy end, yet never delivering a corresponding film. But you know what? Fuck happy ends. I am the one now weighing his trailer against reality. Rewriting hometown fiction into my own story. Ready for the resolution? When Mark and I first met, I was surrounded with problems I wanted to get away from. He was offering a way out, a fictional realm in which he would be that man that I was seeing as my solution. I bought into it, but he kept it fictional all this time, never aiming for reality. Just playing the trailer over and over again, reinforcing the dream within me. And probably within himself too. I don't think this was all just my dream. I think it was his dream as well. I believe he also dreamt he could be that person that didn't get nervous when next to me, someone that didn't need alcohol to feel relaxed, someone that could fulfill the promises of intimacy, someone that could actually be there. But he pulled back every time our story was making a step into reality. He must have believed that he could never be this dream man in real life, that he was only able to install this idea about himself, but he could never be there to prove it. He must have not felt worthy to be there with me. And by that, he reinforced my own self-worth problem. I must have not felt worthy of him staying with me. I guess that was the match. In the end, I guess we both suffer from a lack of self-worth. Not the best thing to have in common, but yes, the anxious and the avoidant both do. The problem is the same, just the response is different. One pushes when pulled, the other one pulls when pushed. One opts to escape the situation, while the other one insists, and so is left abandoned. And why am I always being abandoned? I tried to escape this question all along. I was handling the moments when it came up. No one noticed that I had this dark scenery in my head whenever I had to say goodbye. I kept it for myself. But it never went away. I needed to understand why I kept feeling that way. And this is how my story with Mark brought me back to my hometown in sunny Carinthia. It was August, featuring a clear blue sky and heated temperatures, when my mom and I were walking in a little forest next to a small river. Tall trees were throwing shadow over the sunlight. The path was paved by roots sticking out of earthy ground. Next to us, water was flowing by. We walked upstream. "I need to talk to you," I now said. My mom knew this was not going to be a harmonious conversation. "Tell me." Over the next hour, walking against the stream's current, I formulated what I hadn't allowed myself to think over the last 18 years. "I feel like you just abandoned me when things got tough. From one day to the other, I felt like I wasn't important to you anymore. You deserted me." You get it? I could have said the same thing to Mark. But it was my mom that first gave me that feeling. 18 years ago, my older sister had encountered an illness. In the beginning, at its most critical state, my also involved and loving mother felt forced, as she now told me, to do anything she could in order to help her. My sister needed all her support. From one second to the other, she was claiming all her time. There was little energy left for anything else. Little for me. I was still a teenager, but I wasn't ill. I was healthy. She figured I would find my way. It's not like she wasn't there at all anymore, but she was mostly only there for me when my drama matched up with my sister's. Anytime I cried and shouted, she would listen. But that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to have a drama all the time so I could get her attention. It's not my style. I value harmony too much for that. I instead chose independence. As soon as I finished school, I left. I made my own way, my own life, where I wouldn't be dependent on her attention anymore. Vienna, London, Berlin, I carried my feeling of abandonment with me everywhere I went. Yet, I never told her about it. My mom had enough problems trying to help my sister. I couldn't be another burden hanging on her. That's what I thought. I had taken away the importance from myself. Now walking up the little path by the stream, it was time to take it back. All along the way, I was shouting out what I was feeling back then, how I was missing her all these years, how I felt alone. She listened, It really didn't matter what she said. It wasn't about her. It was about me. Finally, after all these years, I had taken my space. I had stood up for myself. I had taken the time to talk about how I felt. I had given myself the importance that Mark could never give me. And just like that, I didn't need it anymore. Until this day, Mark never replied to my messages, but I've stopped waiting. This is my end to the story. We all have the power to write that part ourselves. Today, when I take my ego out of it, that voice that says I must hate him because he hurt me, I actually want to thank him. Meeting him forced me to deal with myself. The promised escape became the summit of my pressures. They were laid out in the open. I was forced to look at them. And I did. In the end, this story is one of a good step forward for me. I feel like saying, yes, bitch, you did it. And I wish Mark to be able to say the same. After all, us having the same problem, I guess we also share the solution. Tackling our feelings instead of using distraction. Not sure what he decides on. There's only one thing I can say for sure about Mark. I will never dream that dream again.
You know what love it was when it is gone.